There was a time when luxury meant more than just leather seats and a shiny badge. It meant power, elegance, and exclusivity. Cars built only for the rich. These machines weren't for everyone. They were rare, expensive, and made to turn heads wherever they went. Today, many of these once glorious symbols of wealth have been forgotten. But back then, they were the ultimate status symbol. Here are 10 forgotten old luxury cars, built for the rich, not for you. The Rolls-Royce Phantom IV, built between 1950 and 1956, stands as one of the most mysterious and mythic automobiles in the entire history of the automobile industry. Unlike almost any other car ever made, the Phantom IV was never offered to the public. Only 18 units were built, and they were reserved exclusively for royalty, heads of state, and individuals whose power and status placed them in the rarest circle of global influence. It was a car designed not to be sold in showrooms, but to glide silently down grand avenues, its presence alone signaling the arrival of someone whose authority was unquestioned. Even in the elite world of post-war luxury automobiles, the Phantom IV occupied an entirely different realm, one of quiet opulence, diplomatic ceremony, and untouchable exclusivity. The Phantom IV was conceived during a unique period in Rolls-Royce history, when the company still considered itself more of an engineering firm than a luxury car manufacturer. Rolls-Royce already had a reputation for building some of the finest motor cars in the world, but the Phantom IV was designed to surpass even their own standards. Its very existence was a secretive affair, born from a special commission by the then Princess Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh before her accession to the throne of the United Kingdom. This royal connection established the Phantom IV as a vehicle not merely for the wealthy, but for those who embodied the state itself. As a result, Rolls-Royce decided to limit production to an almost unimaginable degree, making the car a symbol of power that no amount of ordinary wealth could buy. At the heart of the Phantom IV was its extraordinary engineering. Unlike previous Rolls-Royce models, the Phantom IV was fitted with a straight-8 engine, a 5.7-liter unit that was both smooth and powerful, designed to provide the quietest possible operation at low speeds. The company's engineers prioritized silence and smoothness above all else. The engine was hand-assembled with painstaking precision, and its entire drivetrain was engineered to minimize vibration and noise to the point where the occupants would hear almost nothing but the faint hum of motion. Rolls-Royce described their cars as delivering the silence of a gliding swan, and nowhere was that promise more faithfully kept than in the Phantom IV. The chassis was equally extraordinary. Each Phantom IV was constructed on a separate bespoke frame, with bodywork commissioned from the world's most prestigious coach builders of the era, including H.J. Mulliner & Company, Hooper & Company, and Park Ward. These coach builders did not simply assemble panels, they crafted rolling works of art, each tailored to the exact requirements of its distinguished owner. Some versions were formal limousines designed for ceremonial processions, with tall roofs, expansive rear compartments, and glass partitions for privacy. Others were touring limousines with more discreet detailing. But regardless of the body style, each Phantom IV shared a commanding road presence, long, stately, and elegant, with the tall, upright radiator grille topped by the Spirit of Ecstasy, signaling its royal pedigree to everyone who saw it pass. The interior of the Phantom IV was an exercise in restrained grandeur. Unlike the glittering, chrome-heavy luxury cars of America, Rolls-Royce favored quiet dignity and craftsmanship over flash. Fine wood veneers, hand-stitched to leather upholstery, thick lambswool carpeting, and solid metal fittings gave the cabin an atmosphere closer to a private drawing room than an automobile. Everything was made by hand, often to the exact personal preferences of the royal household or government officials who would ride in it. Privacy and comfort were paramount. The rear seat area was generously proportioned, designed to accommodate royal robes, military dress uniforms, or ceremonial attire, with footrests, mirrors, writing tables, and sometimes even special fittings for royal regalia. Performance was smooth and deliberate, rather than brisk. The Phantom IV was not meant to be hurried. Its straight-eight engine produced sufficient power to move the enormous limousine effortlessly, but acceleration was gentle and unhurried. The suspension was tuned to glide over rough surfaces without disturbance to the passengers, ensuring that heads of state could travel without being jostled, even on uneven cobblestone roads common in Europe at the time. The gearbox, originally a 4-speed manual with overdrive and later offered with automatic transmissions, was refined to near-silent operation. Drivers chosen to operate these cars were typically chauffeurs trained to the highest standards, often belonging to royal or governmental motor pools. Because of its exclusive clientele, the Phantom IV also carried a symbolic weight that extended far beyond its engineering. The car was often seen leading royal processions, carrying monarchs to state ceremonies, and transporting heads of state on official visits. Its appearance was never casual, it always meant something. In an era before private jets became common, the arrival of a Phantom IV at an airport, palace, or government building was an unmistakable signal that power itself had arrived. This aura of authority made the Phantom IV one of the most recognized and respected symbols of post-war British prestige, even if most people would never see one close up. The extreme exclusivity contributed to its near-mythic status. Only 18 Phantom IV chassis were ever built, and every single one was accounted for, delivered to kings, queens, presidents, and dignitaries across the world. Among the owners were Elizabeth II, the Spanish royal family, the House of Iran during the reign of the Shah, and the Duke of Gloucester. Rolls-Royce maintained a strict policy that no one outside of this rarefied circle could purchase the car, a marketing strategy unlike anything before or since. To most of the world, the Phantom IV was not just rare, it was untouchable. As the years passed, the Phantom IV became almost a ghost of its era, whispered about among automotive historians and royal watchers alike. Many of the cars were preserved in government motor pools or royal collections, rarely seen by the public. A few eventually found their way into museums, where they continue to inspire awe for their craftsmanship and the world they represented. Surviving examples remain extraordinarily valuable, not only because of their rarity, but because each one tells a unique story tied to the most powerful figures of the 20th century. Today, the Rolls-Royce Phantom IV stands as the ultimate symbol of a bygone world, a time when cars were not just luxury possessions, but instruments of ceremony, diplomacy, and power. It represents a level of exclusivity that even the most expensive modern hypercars cannot match, because those can be bought. The Phantom IV could not. Its silent straight-eight engine, imposing silhouette, and regal interior made it not just a car, but a rolling throne, built for a world that most people could only glimpse from a distance. It remains a rare, glittering artifact of automotive history, embodying the absolute peak of royal motoring and a standard of discretion, elegance, and privilege that has never been replicated. The story of the Cord 810 and 812 is one of the most fascinating and tragic chapters in American automotive history. Built between 1936 and 1937, the Cord wasn't just a car, it was a breathtaking glimpse into the future of the automobile. A machine so advanced, so radically different, and so beautifully designed that it seemed to have come from another world entirely. In an era when most cars still looked boxy, upright, and traditional, the Cord swept onto the scene like a vision from tomorrow, a pre-war dream of speed, elegance, and progress. It was a technical masterpiece that dazzled the public and terrified its competitors. But it also arrived in a time and place not quite ready for it. The Cord's innovation was both its glory and its downfall. The car was the brainchild of E.L. Cord, a bold and ambitious entrepreneur who already controlled Auburn Automobile Company and Duesenberg Motors Company. By the mid-1930s, Cord wanted to produce a luxury automobile that would shake the world, a car that wasn't just better, but revolutionary. The result was the Cord 810, a machine that stunned the automotive industry at its debut at the New York Auto Show in November 1935. Crowds gathered around it as though it were a spaceship. Its low, rakish stance, flowing lines, and smooth aerodynamic surfaces made it unlike anything anyone had ever seen on an American road. Journalists and spectators alike described it not as a car, but as a work of art on wheels. One of the most striking features of the Cord 810 was its front end. It abandoned the traditional tall, upright grille in favor of a coffin nose design, an elegantly rounded hood with horizontal louvered bars. This gave the car a sleek aerodynamic face that seemed to cut through the air like an airplane fuselage. Even more groundbreaking were its hidden headlights. Long before pop-up headlights became a stylistic trend in the post-war era, the Cord pioneered them. With a simple hand crank on the dashboard, the headlights would rotate out of the fenders, startling onlookers with this clever and futuristic trick. It was a detail that made the car unforgettable and instantly recognizable. But the Cord wasn't just about looks. Beneath its gorgeous sheet metal was equally radical engineering. It was the first American production car to use front-wheel drive combined with an independent front suspension, a combination that wouldn't become common until decades later. This gave the Cord a remarkably low profile because it didn't require a drive shaft running to the rear axle. As a result, it sat lower to the ground than other luxury cars of the time, with no running boards, a long hood, and a cabin that seemed to float gracefully over its wheels. This lower center of gravity gave it better handling and a more stable, planted feel on the road compared to its more cumbersome contemporaries. The power came from a Lycoming V8, producing around 125 horsepower in standard form. For those who wanted more, there was a supercharged version available on the Cord 812 that boosted output to about 170 horsepower, a huge figure for the mid-1930s. This made the Cord one of the fastest production cars in America at the time. Paired with a 4-speed electrically shifted pre-selector transmission, the Cord offered a driving experience unlike anything most buyers had ever encountered. Instead of a conventional gear lever, drivers used a small fingertip selector on the steering column to pre-select the next gear, then engaged it with the clutch, a concept years ahead of its time. The interior of the Cord was equally forward-thinking. While most cars of the era had simple dashboards with basic gauges, the Cord featured a clean, aircraft-inspired instrument panel. Its round, Art Deco dials were neatly arranged, and everything from the steering wheel to the door handles was styled with precision and elegance. The seating position was lower and more comfortable, and the wide windshield offered excellent visibility. Passengers felt like they were riding in something truly modern, a car that pointed toward a bold new future for American motoring. Yet, for all its brilliance, the Cord's innovations also created immense challenges. The complex front-wheel drive system was sophisticated but delicate, and early production cars suffered from serious mechanical problems. Gearboxes were finicky, electrical systems were temperamental, and the supercharged engines could be unreliable if not maintained perfectly. At a time when American roads were rough and service networks were limited, this level of complexity became a nightmare for owners. Many dealers didn't have the expertise to properly service such an advanced machine, leading to frustrated customers and tarnished reputations. The timing of the Cord's launch also worked against it. The United States was still in the shadow of the Great Depression, and while the economy was recovering, the market for luxury automobiles was shrinking. The Cord's price placed it firmly in the upper tier of automobiles, competing with well-established marques that didn't suffer from teething problems. Buyers who could afford a luxury car were often unwilling to gamble on an unproven, complex machine, no matter how stunning it looked. By 1937, after just 2 model years, production of the Cord 810 and 812 came to a halt. Financial troubles at the Auburn Cord Duesenberg conglomerate, combined with mounting warranty claims and slow sales, spelled the end for this remarkable automobile. Fewer than 3,000 cars were built in total. What should have been a triumph of American innovation became instead a cautionary tale of pushing too far, too fast. Yet time has been kind to the Cord. While it was a commercial failure in its day, it has since been recognized as one of the greatest and most influential American cars ever built. Its styling inspired countless designers. Its engineering foreshadowed technologies that would become mainstream decades later. And its mystique has grown with every passing year. Surviving Cords are now treasured collector's items, often displayed at prestigious concours events around the world. Their coffin-nose front ends and pop-up headlights still turn heads today, nearly a century after their debut. The Cord 810 and 812 represent the best and worst of bold innovation. They were brilliant but fragile, visionary but impractical for their time. And perhaps that's why they remain so deeply fascinating. They were not just cars, but bold statements, a glimpse of a future that arrived too early. In their short and turbulent existence, they left a legacy that far outlived the company that built them, forever securing their place as one of the most unforgettable, forgotten masterpieces of American automotive history. The story of the Stutz Blackhawk is one of those wonderfully strange chapters in American automotive history, part glamour, part absurdity, and part tragedy. Emerging in the early 1970s, when the nation was caught between the fading glow of 1960s optimism and the coming wave of fuel crises, this car was a spectacular, glittering anachronism. It wasn't built for the average driver. It wasn't even built for the average rich driver. It was built for those who wanted to be seen, loudly, extravagantly, unapologetically. And for a brief, surreal moment, the Stutz Blackhawk became the most ostentatious symbol of personal luxury money could buy. The Stutz name itself came with a fascinating legacy. Decades earlier, Stutz Motor Company had been a respected name in the American auto industry, famous for performance cars like the Stutz Bearcat during the 1910s and 1920s. Stutz was once spoken of in the same breath as Packard, Duesenberg, and Cadillac. But by the 1930s, after the Great Depression, the brand had faded into history. Then, in 1968, an ambitious New York banker named James O'Donnell resurrected the Stutz name with a new vision. He wanted to create the most exclusive, most extravagant luxury car in the world. It wouldn't be practical, efficient, or understated. It would be pure theater on wheels. In 1970, that vision became reality with the first prototype of the Stutz Blackhawk. Styled by the legendary Italian designer Virgil Exner, known for his dramatic, almost sculptural work at Chrysler Corporation during the 1950s, the Blackhawk was deliberately designed to shock. It combined European coach-building techniques with American brute force. The chassis and powertrain came from Pontiac Motor Division, specifically the Pontiac Grand Prix. But the body was hand-built in Italy with exaggerated lines, absurd proportions, and enough chrome to blind a man on a sunny day. Nothing about the Stutz Blackhawk was subtle. Its front end featured a massive upright grille, deliberately recalling the pre-war luxury cars of the 1930s. Exner's design mixed vintage cues with 1970s excess. Pop-out spare tire humps on the trunk, swooping fenders, opera windows, and exposed side exhaust pipes. The hood stretched out like a runway and the rear end tapered dramatically, making the car appear both stately and slightly cartoonish. Measuring nearly 19 feet long and weighing over 5,000 pounds, it was a rolling sculpture of wealth and vanity. It cost more than a Rolls-Royce of the same period, and that was exactly the point. Inside, the Stutz Blackhawk went even further. Each interior was hand-finished, dripping with thick leather, polished mahogany, gold-plated trim, and even mink carpeting in some examples. The dash looked more like the interior of an extravagant private yacht than a car. No two interiors were exactly alike. Owners could order whatever they wanted: television sets, custom bars, even special engraving. It wasn't built for functionality or ergonomics. It was built to make the driver and passengers feel like they were in a private lounge on wheels. Under the hood, the early Blackhawks used a massive 7.5-liter Pontiac V8, producing more than 400 horsepower. Despite its enormous weight, the car could accelerate with surprising authority. The rumbling V8 gave it the kind of straight-line thrust that matched its larger-than-life image. But this was never a driver's car in the modern sense. Its suspension was soft and wallowy, its handling ponderous. It was less about carving corners and more about floating down boulevards with effortless arrogance. The Blackhawk was made for slow, dramatic arrivals at nightclubs, hotels, and mansions, not for winding mountain roads. The Stutz Blackhawk's appeal lay almost entirely in its image, and in the early 1970s, that image worked. The car became a celebrity darling almost overnight. Its first and most famous buyer was Elvis Presley, who bought a black 1971 model, the first production unit. He loved the car so much that he famously drove it off the showroom floor the moment he saw it. Elvis reportedly owned several Stutzes over the years, and his first Blackhawk is now legendary, still preserved today. Other buyers included Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Lucille Ball, Sammy Davis Jr., and Evel Knievel. In that glittering world of Hollywood glamour, Las Vegas showmanship, and oil-rich extravagance, the Stutz was the ultimate status symbol. But while celebrities adored it, the car itself was deeply flawed. Because the bodies were hand-built in Modena, Italy, and then shipped to the U.S. for final assembly, production costs were astronomical. Panel fit was often poor. Build quality varied wildly. Underneath all that opulence was a Pontiac chassis and drivetrain. Reliable, perhaps, but hardly worthy of a car costing more than a Rolls-Royce. Buyers expecting engineering excellence were often disappointed. And as the decade wore on, the Blackhawk's anachronistic styling, so bold at the beginning, started to look absurdly out of place against the more modern lines of the late 1970s and 1980s. Then came the oil crisis. A 7.5-liter luxury land yacht that guzzled gasoline was the last thing anyone needed in a world of long gas lines and rising fuel prices. The clientele for such extravagance began to shrink. Stutz tried to keep the Blackhawk alive through the 1980s with smaller engines and slightly updated designs, but the spirit of the car belonged to an earlier, louder, more decadent time. By the mid-1980s, production dwindled to a trickle. Each car still took weeks to hand-build, and only a few dozen were made each year. In total, fewer than 600 Stutz Blackhawks were ever built between 1971 and 1987. As a commercial enterprise, it was never truly successful, but as a cultural artifact, it remains unforgettable. It perfectly captured the excess and theatricality of the 1970s, the kind of car that could only have existed in a world where glamour was more important than sense. Today, the Stutz Blackhawk lives on as a cult object, a curiosity from a time when automotive design had no fear of going too far. Collectors and enthusiasts still seek them out, though they are rare and often expensive to restore due to their bespoke nature. Some see them as rolling jokes, others as irreplaceable relics of a vanished era. But either way, no one can deny their presence. Even now, when a Stutz Blackhawk rolls down the street, People stop, stare, and wonder what on earth they're looking at. It was a car too indulgent to last, too bold to be forgotten, and too strange to fit anywhere else in automotive history. A monument to 1970s excess. Gaudy, powerful, unapologetic, and utterly unforgettable. The 1958-1960 Continental Mark III was never just a car. It was a grand, glittering, overbuilt dream that came from a period when American car manufacturers genuinely believed that luxury could be measured in feet of chrome, pounds of steel, and the soft whisper of an idling V8. It was designed not for the masses, but for the select few who wanted a personal statement of power, privilege, and excess. When it rolled out of the factory, it wasn't intended to blend in with traffic. It was meant to dominate it, to tower above it, to make everything else on the road look ordinary. Its very existence was the result of Ford's ambitious and ultimately tragic experiment, a separate Continental division that would create cars so refined and exclusive they could rival the most prestigious European marques. Ford poured staggering sums of money into the program, hoping to build an American equivalent of Rolls-Royce and Bentley, a machine that would appeal to aristocrats, oil magnates, and the old money elite. They had already made their statement with the hand-built Continental Mark II of 1956, which cost more than a Rolls-Royce of the same era. But the Mark II, for all its elegance, wasn't profitable. So when it came time to create the Mark III, Ford decided to build a new kind of ultra-luxury car, this time larger, louder, heavier, and more dramatic. The Mark III was enormous even by late 1950s American standards. At nearly 19 feet in length and over 7 feet in width, it looked more like a ceremonial carriage than a personal automobile. It weighed over 5,000 pounds, making it one of the heaviest passenger cars ever produced by an American manufacturer at the time. Its slab-sided body was decorated with acres of polished chrome that could blind in sunlight. The massive grille, which stretched wide across the front, gave it a stern, commanding presence. Its tail fins were broad and bold, not delicate or artistic like those of Cadillac, but heavy and imposing, more like the fins of a ship than a car. The interior was just as excessive. This was no simple cockpit, it was a lounge on wheels. Thick, soft leather seats invited passengers to sink in and forget the world outside. Real wood trim and deep pile carpeting lined the cabin. The dashboard was a sweeping arc of chrome and polished metal designed to give the impression of commanding a private yacht. Everything was over-engineered to give a sense of weight and importance. The doors shut with a satisfying, almost vault-like thud, and the switches and knobs were heavy in the hand, like precision instruments. It was built to make the driver feel not like they were driving a car, but like they were commanding a vessel. Under the hood, the Mark III carried the 430 cubic inch MEL V8 engine, delivering 375 horsepower and a tidal wave of torque. It was never meant to be a sports car. It was meant to move its massive bulk with imperious effortlessness. Acceleration was a dignified surge rather than a roar, and once it reached highway speeds, it floated with uncanny smoothness. Passengers often describe the ride as like being in a silent drawing room on rails. It devoured long, straight highways with ease, the big engine humming quietly beneath the hood. But its size and weight were its greatest enemy. The car didn't like corners. Braking was sluggish compared to smaller vehicles. And with single-digit fuel economy, even the wealthy buyers had to reckon with its thirst. Unfortunately, the timing of its release could not have been worse. In 1958, America was entering a recession. Flashy, extravagant cars suddenly seemed out of touch with the mood of the nation. People wanted something practical, or at least something less absurdly huge. The Mark III carried a price tag that was astronomical, even higher than many European luxury cars. And unlike Mercedes-Benz or Rolls-Royce, which had cultivated generations of prestige, Ford's Continental division was still trying to prove itself. The Mark III's weight, size, and price made it a difficult sell even to those who could afford it. And unlike the elegant Mark II, which had been hand-built with exquisite attention to detail, the Mark III was more of a production car. Some buyers noticed the difference, and the aura of exclusivity began to crack. Yet for those who did buy it, the Mark III was kind of a personal throne. Many owners spoke of how the car felt like a private world, sealed off from everything around them. One owner in California, who bought his Mark III new in 1959, recalled decades later, "It wasn't a car, it was a floating room. You didn't hear the road, you didn't feel the road, you just floated down the boulevard like you owned the city. But when you tried to park it, well, that's when reality came crashing in." The recession hit Ford's Continental division hard. Sales were poor. In total, fewer than 13,000 examples of the Mark III, IV, and V series were produced between 1958 and 1960. The losses were staggering, and Ford had no choice but to shut down the independent Continental division. By 1961, the Continental name was folded into Lincoln, and the era of the ultra-exclusive standalone Continental Mark came to an end. The Mark III was the grand, doomed swan song of that dream. As the years passed, many Mark IIIs vanished. Their size made them impractical. Their value plummeted in the 1970s and 1980s, and they were often scrapped or left to rust. A few survived in the hands of dedicated collectors who recognized their historical significance. Today, surviving examples are rare, and seeing one in person is like stepping into a time machine, a glimpse into a brief moment in American automotive history when bigger really did mean better, when luxury meant building the most enormous and most extravagant machine on the road, regardless of cost or reason. The Continental Mark III is a monument to excess, an artifact of a vanished America that believed luxury could be engineered into every inch of a car. It is both a triumph of ambition and a reminder of how fragile such dreams can be when reality catches up. It remains a forgotten titan of the road, a car that didn't just transport its passengers, but transported them into another world entirely. The 1933 Pierce Arrow Silver Arrow was not just a luxury car, it was a vision, a metallic prophecy of what the future of motoring might look like. When it first appeared to the public at the Chicago World's Fair 1933, it stunned the crowd. In an era of boxy sedans, upright grilles, and fenders that looked like separate pieces bolted on, the Silver Arrow emerged like something from a science fiction novel. It was long, low, smooth, and eerily modern. It looked like it had no business being on the same streets as the Model A. This was the car that whispered of a future of speed, wealth, and elegance, but a future that very few would ever be able to touch. To understand why the Silver Arrow was so radical, you need to understand the world it was born into. America in 1933 was in the depths of the Great Depression. Factories were closing, banks were failing, and millions of Americans were struggling to survive. The automotive industry was bleeding. Most people who could afford a new car were buying modest, practical vehicles. And in that bleak climate, the Pierce Arrow Motor Car Company, one of America's most prestigious luxury marques, made a bold, almost reckless decision. Instead of retreating into practicality, it would build a rolling monument to progress, a machine that would prove that luxury and innovation could still exist even in the darkest of times. The result was the Silver Arrow. Designed under the direction of the brilliant stylist Philip O. Wright, the car was unlike anything else on American roads. Instead of separate fenders and a blunt nose, its body flowed smoothly from front to back, with sweeping curves and a continuous line that suggested speed even when standing still. Its headlights were integrated into the fenders, a shocking design choice for the time. The spare wheels were hidden behind sleek panels, removing the visual clutter that defined most cars of the early 1930s. Its roofline was low and streamlined, its windshield raked back, its sides smooth and uninterrupted. Where other cars looked assembled, the Silver Arrow looked sculpted. Even its name sounded futuristic, Silver Arrow, like something that belonged on a racetrack in another century. Beneath its elegant aerodynamic shell lay an equally impressive heart. A 462 cubic inch V12 engine producing 175 horsepower. This was an extraordinary figure for its time, giving the Silver Arrow a top speed of around 115 miles per hour, a breathtaking number in an era when most cars struggled to reach 70. Pierce Arrow didn't build the Silver Arrow to just be a luxury cruiser. They built it to be a statement of engineering supremacy. It was quiet, powerful, and smooth, with an effortless surge of acceleration that felt like magic to those lucky few who experienced it. Its ride quality was impeccable, thanks to Pierce Arrow's traditional attention to detail in chassis and suspension design. In an age when most cars still rattled and bounced over rough roads, the Silver Arrow glided like a ship on calm water. The interior was no less spectacular. Inside, passengers were greeted with a cocoon of leather, polished wood, and chrome, arranged with precision and elegance. Every control, knob, and gauge was designed to feel substantial, luxurious, and futuristic. The dashboard was clean and symmetrical, with beautifully crafted instruments. Seating was wide and deeply cushioned, more like a private lounge than a car interior. This was not transportation. It was an experience meant to cocoon its wealthy occupants in silent opulence. But there was one thing even more staggering than its engineering or its beauty: the price. In 1933, the Silver Arrow cost an unimaginable $10,000, at a time when a typical house in America could be bought for less than $2,000, and a Ford Model A cost around $500. It was an astronomical sum, a deliberate barrier that ensured only the wealthiest individuals could even dream of owning one. Pierce Arrow wasn't trying to sell a mass-market car. They were making a statement to the world. We build the best. We build the future. Only 5 Silver Arrows were ever built. They were each handcrafted, each slightly different, and each destined for the garages of the ultra-elite, industrialists, old-money aristocrats, and celebrities who wanted not just a car, but a symbol of their untouchable status. One contemporary reporter described the car as a silver bullet that belongs on the boulevard of tomorrow. And indeed, when one of these cars glided down the street, heads turned. It didn't just stand out, it made everything else around it look old-fashioned and irrelevant. But for all its brilliance, the Silver Arrow was born into the wrong world. The Great Depression didn't care about aerodynamic styling or V12 engines. Pierce Arrow had created something beautiful and impossible, and they paid the price for it. The company's sales continued to plummet throughout the 1930s. Wealthy buyers were fewer and fewer. Even those who could afford the Silver Arrow hesitated to flaunt their wealth so brazenly in a time of widespread suffering. Pierce Arrow tried to adapt by building more conventional cars, but the damage was done. By 1938, the once proud automaker was gone. And yet the legacy of the Silver Arrow did not vanish with the company. It became a legend among collectors and automotive historians, a rare artifact of a time when one company dared to dream far ahead of its era. Its smooth, aerodynamic body would later inspire post-war automotive design. Its hidden headlights and flowing fenders anticipated trends that wouldn't fully take hold until the late 1930s and 1940s. Its philosophy, that a car could be both art and machine, echoed through the decades. Today, the surviving Silver Arrows are among the rarest and most coveted American automobiles ever built. Each of the original 5 cars is treated like a national treasure, residing in museums or private collections. When one appears at a Concours event, it doesn't just attract attention, it draws reverence. People fall silent around it, because they know they're looking at something that represents both the height of ambition and the fragility of dreams. The Pierce Arrow Silver Arrow remains one of the greatest forgotten luxury icons of the pre-war era, a car that arrived too early, cost too much, and burned too brightly to last. But for those who understand it, it is not just a machine. It is a monument to vision, to courage, and to the idea that even in the darkest times, someone dared to build the future. The Duesenberg Model J was more than just a car. It was a declaration, a roaring, glittering, hand-built monument to American power, wealth, and mechanical genius at a time when the automobile was still carving out its identity as a symbol of status. When it was unveiled in 1928, the world had never seen anything quite like it. It was not simply the fastest and most luxurious car in the United States. It was, by every standard of the era, one of the greatest automobiles ever built. It existed in a realm far above the Fords and Chevrolets that filled the streets. It belonged to the rich, the powerful, and the glamorous, the people for whom cost meant nothing and prestige meant everything. To fully understand why the Model J became such a legend, you have to step into the cultural and economic atmosphere of late 1920s America. It was the end of the Jazz Age, a time of glitz and optimism before the crash. Millionaires were building mansions, Broadway was shining bright, and the silver screen was turning actors into gods. Cars weren't just transportation, they were extensions of identity. For the truly wealthy, a Packard or Cadillac was no longer enough. And into that world came Duesenberg with a machine that would make even the wealthiest pause and stare. Duesenberg wasn't just another car company. Founded by the Duesenberg brothers, Fred and August, the company had already built a reputation in racing, winning at Indianapolis 500 and even at the French Grand Prix. Their engineering was unmatched. When E.L. Cord acquired the company in 1926, he gave the brothers the resources to build the greatest luxury car in the world, and that's exactly what they set out to do. 2 years later, the Model J was born, a car so advanced, so powerful, and so opulent that it instantly outclassed everything else on the road. At its heart was a 420 cubic inch straight-8 engine, producing an astonishing 265 horsepower. To put that in perspective, most luxury cars of the day barely reached 100 horsepower. The Model J could cruise effortlessly at 90 miles per hour and was capable of exceeding 115 miles per hour, speeds that were almost unimaginable in 1928. It was engineered with precision and built to a standard that seemed almost insane at the time. Everything about the engine, from its twin overhead camshafts to its exquisite finishing, was designed not just for performance, but for prestige. Opening the hood of a Duesenberg wasn't just a mechanical act, it was theater. Polished metal gleamed, intricate engineering dazzled. It looked like something out of a laboratory rather than a garage. Unlike most cars, which came as complete packages, a Duesenberg was sold as a bare chassis and engine. Wealthy buyers would then send it to coach builders like Murphy Coach Builders, Durham Body Company, or Rolston Company to be draped in handcrafted bodywork tailored to their personal tastes. No two Duesenbergs were exactly alike. Some were built as elegant touring sedans. Others became sweeping roadsters, low and sinuous. A few were extravagant limousines with interiors fit for royalty. Leather, polished wood, chrome, silk, and hand-stitched detailing covered every surface. The dashboard looked more like the control panel of an aircraft than a car, with beautiful instruments arranged with perfect symmetry. The interior smelled of luxury, felt like wealth, and radiated status. The people who owned Duesenbergs were the titans of their time. Clark Gable owned one. So did Howard Hughes, Al Capone, and European royalty. Maharaja of Indore ordered a special one. Driving a Duesenberg wasn't just transportation, it was making an entrance. Crowds gathered when one appeared on the street. Its long hood, massive grille, and elegant stance gave it an unmistakable presence. Even at a standstill, it exuded power. It was the car of people who were used to getting what they wanted. The price of such magnificence was staggering. A typical Duesenberg Model J cost between $13,000 and $19,000, at a time when a Ford Model A cost about $500 and a new house could be bought for less than $4,000. In modern terms, it was the equivalent of a multi-million-dollar hypercar. And yet, the Model J justified its price not just with performance and luxury, but with a sense of occasion. It was, quite simply, the finest automobile of its era. But the car that represented the height of American luxury was also a product of a fragile moment in history. Barely a year after its dazzling debut, the Wall Street crash of 1929 struck, plunging America into the Great Depression. Suddenly, the golden age of roaring wealth evaporated. The ultra-rich still existed, but their numbers dwindled. Displaying wealth so extravagantly became a liability rather than a badge of honor. Duesenberg sales faltered. By 1937, after producing fewer than 500 Model Js, the company was finished. Even as the Depression crushed it, the Model J left behind an unshakable legacy. It was still faster, more powerful, and more advanced than nearly any other car for decades afterward. It became a symbol of pre-Depression excess, of a time when craftsmanship and engineering were pursued with no thought to cost. Its slogan, "It's a doozy," entered American language as a way to describe something truly extraordinary. Today, surviving Duesenberg Model Js are among the most valuable and sought-after classic cars in the world. They appear at the most prestigious concourse events, often commanding prices in the millions. Collectors regard them not just as cars, but as works of art. Each one tells a story of roaring engines, glittering ballrooms, and a time when the road was ruled by the few who could afford to dream without limits. The Duesenberg Model J remains one of the most extraordinary expressions of American engineering and luxury. It represents not just a machine, but a world that vanished almost overnight, a world of jazz, excess, and elegance on wheels. Even today, nearly a century later, when a Duesenberg glides into view, everything else fades into the background. It doesn't just arrive, it commands the room. The Packard Caribbean, produced between 1953 and 1956, represents one of the final, audacious statements of a storied American luxury automaker struggling to maintain its relevance in a rapidly evolving market. Packard had long been associated with prestige, engineering excellence, and bespoke craftsmanship, a marquee whose name was whispered in the same breath as royalty, presidents, and the social elite who demanded nothing but the finest in automotive opulence. By the early 1950s, however, the automotive world was changing fast. Cadillac was expanding its reach with ever larger, flashier cars. Lincoln was modernizing its designs, and American consumers were beginning to favor style and convenience over the painstaking hand-built refinement that had been Packard's hallmark. In this climate, the Caribbean was conceived not just as a car, but as a statement of survival, a last hurrah that would signal that Packard could still compete with the best. When it was introduced in 1953, the Caribbean immediately stunned audiences. Its design was flamboyant yet harmonious, a perfect blend of elegance and showmanship. A sweeping, sculpted lines gave it a fluid, almost aerodynamic appearance, while massive tail fins, more restrained than Cadillac's later designs, yet bold for the era, signaled that this was a car of status and power. Chrome accents traced the contours of the bodywork, framing the car in a brilliance that caught sunlight and attention alike. Perhaps most striking was the Caribbean's tritone paint, a technique rare in America at the time, which allowed carefully coordinated colors to enhance the car's curves and angles, turning the Caribbean into a moving work of art. The convertible top was elegantly integrated, providing a seamless, luxurious profile, whether raised or lowered. Every surface and component seemed hand-finished, exuding a level of refinement that would later be viewed as a lost art in American car production. In this climate, the Caribbean offered an oasis of comfort and craftsmanship. Deeply cushioned leather seats invited passengers to sink in, while real wood veneers and polished chrome accents adorned the dashboard, door panels, and center console. The interior was designed to feel like a private salon on wheels, with every control and gauge deliberately placed for both utility and aesthetic harmony. The steering wheel, heavy and solid in the hand, communicated authority, while the instrumentation, precise and beautifully crafted, signaled that the car was not merely transportation, but an extension of its owner's social stature. Even the soundproofing, the smoothness of the suspension, and the deliberate, floating ride quality were orchestrated to ensure that every journey felt ceremonial. The Caribbean didn't just transport its passengers, it cocooned them in luxury, separating them from the ordinary world outside. Performance was equally impressive for a luxury car of its era. Initially powered by Packard's signature straight-eight engine, the Caribbean later received the potent 359 cubic-inch V8 in 1955, offering effortless acceleration and smooth, dignified cruising. Speed was never its main allure. Rather, it was the quiet power with which it moved, a car that could command the road without ever needing to shout. Handling and ride comfort were carefully tuned for refinement rather than sporty responsiveness, ensuring passengers felt more like they were gliding on a private yacht than gripping a steering wheel in a car. Driving the Caribbean was less about urgency and more about presence. It was a car that demanded attention, respect, and admiration wherever it went. Despite its brilliance, the Caribbean was born at the wrong moment. Its arrival coincided with the post-war shift in American car culture. The wealthy were being courted aggressively by Cadillac and Lincoln, whose designs were increasingly appealing to buyers seeking modern styling, reliability, and the prestige of mass-market luxury. Packard, by contrast, relied on a philosophy rooted in meticulous craftsmanship, which was costly and slow to produce. Only a few thousand Caribbeans were built over its 4-year production run, making it immediately exclusive, but also limiting its market impact. Its astronomical price put it out of reach for all but the wealthiest buyers, and the economic pressures of the 1950s meant even those buyers were increasingly selective. The Caribbean, for all its grandeur, struggled to find a sustainable foothold. Financial challenges would eventually doom Packard. Despite the Caribbean's critical acclaim and undeniable artistry, the company's overall sales were falling, production costs were high, and competition was fierce. By the mid-1950s, Packard was in decline, and when it finally ceased production, the Caribbean became one of the last and most striking representations of the brand's philosophy, a car built for those who demanded artistry, elegance, and individual expression over practicality or conformity. It represented an era when American luxury was measured not in mass-market appeal, but in meticulous attention to detail, bespoke craftsmanship, and the ability to turn a car into a statement of wealth and taste. Today, surviving Caribbeans are exceedingly rare and highly prized among collectors. Their combination of bold styling, impeccable craftsmanship, and historical significance makes them stand out at classic car shows and concours events. Every surviving example is a tangible link to a fleeting moment in American automotive history, when luxury was defined by artistry rather than efficiency, when elegance was more important than practicality, and when a car could be a rolling testament to status, style, and imagination. The Packard Caribbean endures not just as a car, but as a symbol of ambition, of refinement, and of the bittersweet reality of an industry in transition. It remains one of the most beautiful, most extravagant, and most tragic icons of American automotive history, a masterpiece of design that arrived too late to save a brand, but early enough to leave an indelible mark on the world. The Chrysler Imperial Crown Southampton, produced from 1957 through 1963, represents one of the most extravagant and audacious expressions of American automotive luxury during the golden era of post-war design. Chrysler conceived it not merely as a competitor to Cadillac's Series 62 or Lincoln's Continental, but as a vehicle that would redefine what American opulence could look like on wheels. The intention was to combine performance, technology, and unadulterated visual drama into a package that screamed prestige. From the very first glance, the Southampton demanded attention. Towering, swept-back tail fins carved into the rear fenders gave the car a sense of motion even when standing still, while bullet-shaped taillights, chromed accents, and sculpted body lines reinforced a bold, commanding presence. It was a car designed to be noticed, admired, and remembered, a rolling throne for those who wanted to assert power and taste simultaneously. The sheer scale of the vehicle, paired with its flowing, elongated silhouette, made it a dominant presence on any street or highway, signaling to all who saw it that this was a vehicle reserved for those who lived at the top of society. Step inside, and the Imperial Crown Southampton's interior was a veritable palace on wheels. Chrysler spared no expense in creating a cabin that was as dramatic and luxurious as the exterior promised. The seats were crafted from the finest leathers, deeply cushioned and lavishly finished, meant to envelop passengers in a sense of comfort and indulgence previously reserved for private yachts or first-class airliners. Hand-polished wood veneers adorned the dashboard, door panels, and center console, interspersed with gleaming chrome trim that reflected light and accentuated the elegance of the vehicle. Every control was meticulously engineered to feel substantial and deliberate, from the tactile feedback of knobs and levers to the layout of the instrument cluster, which combined clarity with refinement. Optional features that were rare in even the most expensive cars of the era, such as air conditioning, power windows, power seats, and advanced radios, further elevated the Southampton's interior into the realm of bespoke luxury. Even the smallest details, from door handles to window cranks, were designed to convey a sense of craftsmanship and permanence, turning the act of simply entering the vehicle into a ceremonial experience. Beneath its extravagant exterior, the Southampton was powered by Chrysler's formidable V8 engines, including the famed 392 cubic inch Hemi in later models, providing smooth, effortless power that made its considerable bulk feel almost weightless on the road. Handling was tuned for comfort rather than sport, with a suspension that absorbed bumps and imperfections to deliver a gliding ride, the sort of serenity that allowed occupants to feel as though they were floating through traffic rather than competing with it. Despite its size, Chrysler engineered the car so that it maintained composure and dignity even at highway speeds, allowing it to deliver a commanding driving experience without ever feeling unwieldy. This balance of monumental presence and refined performance was critical to the Southampton's design philosophy. It was luxury expressed not just in materials, but in motion and experience. Yet the very qualities that made the Imperial Crown Southampton magnificent also limited its commercial success. Its size, styling, and craftsmanship came with a price tag that put it well beyond the reach of all but the wealthiest buyers. It required an owner willing to embrace its sheer audacity and invest in both acquisition and maintenance. At a time when Cadillac and Lincoln offered luxury with broader appeal, Chrysler's bold, over-the-top approach was both its defining strength and commercial weakness. While the car achieved acclaim among critics and affluent enthusiasts, it was always niche, a symbol of ultimate luxury that few could justify purchasing. Consequently, production numbers were modest, further cementing the Southampton status as an exclusive, rarefied vehicle. In historical context, the Southampton represents a pivotal moment in mid-century American automotive design. It embodies an era when carmakers were free to push boundaries, to express identity and power through bold, sometimes outrageous design choices. Thins, chrome, elaborate interiors, and expansive bodywork were not just styling elements, they were statements about ambition, prosperity, and cultural confidence. The Imperial Crown Southampton captured this ethos more fully than almost any other car of its time, standing as a monument to Chrysler's vision and willingness to take risks in pursuit of perfection and prestige. Today, the Imperial Crown Southampton is an extremely rare collector's piece, cherished by those who understand the historical and aesthetic significance of mid-century American luxury. Surviving examples are showcased at concours d'elegance and classic car auctions, where their design, craftsmanship, and monumental scale evoke admiration and awe. Each car is not merely an artifact, it is a testament to a period when American automakers dared to dream on a grand scale, producing vehicles that were more than transportation. They were expressions of status, artistry, and cultural aspiration. The Southampton remains a symbol of ambition, daring, and the very height of automotive luxury in post-war America, a car that combined elegance, power, and audacious style into a singular, unforgettable package. It is a reminder that even when overshadowed by competitors, there were moments when American designers and engineers dared to create something transcendent, a car that could dominate streets, captivate eyes, and define an era in ways no ordinary vehicle could. The Cadillac Eldorado Brougham, produced from 1957 through 1960, occupies a singular place in the history of American luxury automobiles. A car so audacious in design, so lavish in execution, and so technologically advanced that it remains a symbol of mid-20th century extravagance and ambition. Cadillac conceived the Brougham at a time when it sought to cement its position as the apex of automotive luxury in the United States, directly competing with European coach-built vehicles while simultaneously surpassing domestic rivals like Lincoln and Chrysler. This wasn't merely a car, it was a statement of wealth, taste, and technological audacity, designed for an elite clientele who demanded not only transportation, but a rolling monument to status, sophistication, and modernity. From the first glance, the Eldorado Brougham stunned observers. Its sleek, elongated body, stately proportions, and crisp, futuristic lines exuded authority and refinement. Unlike other Cadillacs of the era, it sported a stainless steel roof, lending it a subtly reflective elegance that set it apart from any contemporary vehicle. Its sharp, sculpted tail fins hinted at speed and modernity, while extensive chrome trim and precise detailing emphasized craftsmanship of the highest caliber. Unlike mass-produced vehicles, the Brougham was built almost entirely by hand. Every panel was meticulously fitted, every chrome accent carefully polished, and every interior surface finished with attention that rivaled European coach builders. Its presence on the road demanded attention, whether cruising down city boulevards or arriving at high-profile social events. The Eldorado Brougham was designed to be seen, to impress, and to intimidate competitors with its sheer audacity and refinement. Step inside, and the interior revealed a world of luxury previously unseen in an American production car. Cadillac engineers pushed the boundaries of comfort and convenience with features that would not become mainstream for decades. Automatic memory seats allowed drivers to return to preset positions at the touch of a button, a revolutionary concept at the time. The car's air suspension system provided a ride quality that was surreal in its smoothness, allowing passengers to glide over roads as if floating in a private salon on wheels. Even the smallest details were treated with the utmost care. Meticulously stitched leather upholstery, polished wood veneers, chrome accents, and a thoughtfully arranged dashboard created an environment that combined visual splendor with tactile pleasure. A perfume dispenser, a feature almost unheard of in any vehicle at the time, reflected Cadillac's desire to integrate luxury into every aspect of the driving experience, turning even the simplest journey into a demonstration of sophistication and indulgence. Beneath its elegant exterior, the Eldorado Brougham carried Cadillac's formidable V8 engine, delivering smooth, effortless power capable of moving its considerable bulk with grace and authority. Acceleration was never about sportiness. It was about presence, poise, and the sensation of control, allowing drivers and passengers to feel elevated above the ordinary act of transportation. Combined with the innovative air suspension system, the car's ride was floaty yet stable, absorbing road imperfections and ensuring that every journey felt like a dignified, refined procession rather than a mere commute. In essence, the Eldorado Brougham transformed the act of driving and riding into an experience of theatrical luxury, where even mundane errands were elevated into moments of spectacle and indulgence. Yet the very features that made the Brougham extraordinary also made it temperamental and complex. Its air suspension, sophisticated electronics, and intricate mechanical systems were prone to failure, requiring careful maintenance and specialized attention. Buyers who could afford its eye-watering price often found themselves contending with mechanical frustrations that tempered the car's otherwise awe-inspiring presence. Only a few hundred were produced over its 4-year run, making it exceedingly rare and cementing its status as a collector's item and symbol of extreme luxury. The scarcity and complexity of the car meant that ownership was reserved for those with wealth, patience, and a taste for both opulence and engineering marvels. Historically, the Eldorado Brougham represents the pinnacle of American ambition in automotive luxury during the post-war era. It is a car that dared to push design, technology, and comfort to their absolute limits, creating an automobile that was as much a personal statement as it was a mode of transportation. Its influence extended beyond its production years, inspiring designers and engineers to explore the boundaries of what a luxury car could be, demonstrating that American automakers could rival the artistry and sophistication of European coach builders. Yet it also served as a cautionary tale. Over-engineering and complexity, however brilliant, could restrict accessibility, complicate maintenance, and limit commercial success. Today, the Eldorado Brougham is revered as one of the most remarkable and audacious luxury cars in history. Surviving examples are prized in private collections and at the most prestigious Concours d'Elegance events, where their presence continues to captivate enthusiasts, historians, and collectors alike. Each car is a living testament to a brief moment in time when Cadillac dared to exceed expectations, when American luxury was defined not by pragmatism, but by vision, artistry, and sheer ambition. The Brougham remains a symbol of audacity, technical ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of perfection, a car that still embodies the extraordinary lengths to which American manufacturers once went to create vehicles that transcended mere transportation, becoming moving arts of art, status symbols, and engineering marvels all at once. It is not merely a classic car, it is a monument to a time when automotive luxury knew no bounds, a vehicle whose ambition and extravagance continue to inspire awe nearly 7 decades later.
The Lincoln Continental Mark II, produced from 1956 to 1957, stands as one of the most remarkable and elegant examples of post-war American automotive luxury, a vehicle that epitomized restraint, craftsmanship, and understated sophistication in an era increasingly defined by flamboyance and ostentation. Unlike the tail-fin-crazed, chrome-bloated cars that dominated the late 1950s, the Mark II embraced a philosophy of pure elegance, clean, flowing lines, harmonious proportions, and meticulous attention to detail created a car that exuded class without shouting for attention. It was a statement of taste and refinement, intended to compete not merely with domestic competitors, but with the finest European luxury cars, including Rolls-Royce and Bentley. The designers at Lincoln deliberately avoided gimmicks or excessive ornamentation. There were no soaring tail fins, no overabundant chrome flourishes, and no visual exaggerations. Every curve, panel, and proportion was carefully considered to convey dignity, presence, and timeless style. Hand-built almost entirely at Lincoln's specialized plant, the Mark II represented the pinnacle of craftsmanship in the American automotive industry. Each car took countless hours to assemble, with body panels carefully aligned, interior materials selected for quality and durability, and finishes applied with painstaking precision. The interior was a sanctuary of comfort and luxury, with supple leather upholstery, fine wood veneers, and chrome accents that were understated yet perfectly executed. The layout of the dashboard, controls, and instruments reflected thoughtful ergonomics, allowing the driver to operate the vehicle effortlessly while maintaining a sense of poise and sophistication. This was a car designed not merely to transport, but to elevate the experience of driving and riding into an expression of status, elegance, and refinement. Optional extras were thoughtfully integrated, from power seats to high-end audio systems, but always in a manner consistent with the car's minimalist yet luxurious philosophy. Under the hood, the Continental Mark II featured a powerful 368 cubic inch Lincoln V8, which delivered smooth, effortless performance appropriate for a luxury grand tourer. The car's ride and handling were tuned for serenity and composure, providing a floaty, comfortable experience that made even long journeys effortless. The Mark II was designed to glide over highways and city streets alike, offering its occupants a feeling of calm authority, a floating sense of refinement that contrasted sharply with the more ostentatious, brash vehicles of the period. Its engineering emphasized quiet operation, structural integrity, and a driving experience that was as dignified as it was effortless, reflecting Lincoln's commitment to uncompromising luxury. Despite its brilliance, the Mark II was commercially unsustainable. The hand-built nature of the vehicle and the extraordinary attention to detail made it incredibly expensive to produce. With a price tag of around $10,000 in the 1950s, a sum greater than the cost of many houses at the time, few could afford it, and each car sold represented a significant financial loss for Ford. This economic reality limited production to just over 3,000 units over its 2-year run, ensuring its rarity and cementing its status as one of the most exclusive American cars ever produced. The exclusivity of the Mark II was further enhanced by its clientele. Hollywood stars like Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra, as well as industrialists and social elites, were among the fortunate few who could experience the car firsthand. Its association with these icons reinforced the aura of sophistication, glamour, and prestige. In historical context, the Lincoln Continental Mark II occupies a unique place in American automotive history. It represents an apex of handcrafted luxury at a time when the industry was moving toward mass production and visual spectacle. While cars of the late 1950s increasingly prioritized flashy styling and mass appeal, the Mark II remained focused on proportion, refinement, and the pure elegance of design. It was a vehicle that demanded appreciation for its subtlety, its meticulous construction, and its ability to convey luxury without excess. The Mark II also influenced future Lincoln designs, establishing a benchmark for elegance and refinement that would inform the brand's identity for decades to come, even as American luxury shifted toward larger, more flamboyant vehicles. Today, surviving Continental Mark IIs are treasured by collectors and enthusiasts for their rarity, design excellence, and historical significance. Each car is a testament to an era when American automakers could build vehicles that rivaled European craftsmanship while maintaining a distinct sense of understated luxury. At concourse events and private collections, the Mark II continues to captivate audiences with its elegant proportions, flawless craftsmanship, and serene presence, reminding all who see it that American automotive history was capable of producing masterpieces. The Lincoln Continental Mark II remains not merely a car, but an icon of taste, ambition, and artistry, a rolling embodiment of a time when luxury was measured not in extravagance, but in the precision, care, and timeless elegance with which a vehicle was conceived and executed. Its legacy endures as one of the finest examples of what American automotive engineering and design could achieve at the very highest level.